Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something we literally use every single second of the day, but probably rarely think about. We're going to discover how mastering English grammar is honestly just like perfecting a master recipe, one that's been passed down through all of human history. So let's jump right into the central mystery here. What actually brings a jumble of totally abstract words to life? I mean, you probably know thousands of words, right? But just throwing them into a bowl together doesn't automatically make a meal. For a sentence to truly work, to be clear and pack a real punch, every single word has to play a highly specific role. As the legendary dictionary maker Samuel Johnson so brilliantly put it, language is the dress of thought. The stakes are incredibly high when we communicate. We're using words to literally dress up our ideas. Pick the wrong pieces, and our thoughts come out looking, well, messy or confusing. But if we truly understand the categories of words, these parts of speech, our thoughts are dressed to perfection. And here's the exact menu for today's explainer. 1. The secret recipe. 2. Foundation, nouns and verbs. 3. Flavor, adjectives, adverbs, and articles. 4. Connectors and substitutes. 5. The spice of emotion. And 6. Perfecting your grammar recipe. Okay, jumping right into part 1, the secret recipe. Let's look at language as a set of highly specific tools. Before we start cooking, think about this metaphor because it's absolutely fascinating. Learning grammar is kind of like holding this massive ring of keys, and each key represents a different part of speech. You've got your noun key, your verb key, your adjective key. But here's the catch. If you try to use the wrong key, like forcing a noun to do a verb's job, the door stays locked shut. The sentence just flat out fails. We have to know exactly which key opens which door. Moving to part 2, foundation, nouns and verbs. Every great recipe absolutely demands a heavy, solid foundation, right? In English, those fundamental ingredients are our nouns and verbs. The noun is our starting point. It's the actual substance of what we're talking about. It identifies people, places, things, or even completely abstract ideas like independence or beauty. Nouns are really the oldest reality of language. Just giving something a name is the very first step in communicating that it even exists. What's super interesting here is how the Montessori educational method visualizes this. To make this totally abstract concept concrete, they use a solid black pyramid to represent the noun. And why a pyramid? Well, it's one of the oldest human structures. It's heavy, it's stable, it's solid. Plus, it's black to represent carbon, which is widely believed to be the first mineral ever discovered by early humans. It's just a perfect symbol for how nouns were likely the very first words spoken by our ancestors. Now, if the noun is the substance, the verb is the engine. Fun fact, the word verb actually stems from the Latin word verbum, which literally translates to the word. That's because it is the chief word in any sentence. It's what provides the life-giving action, the energy, and the movement to our subjects. This dynamic is just brilliant. Think about the visual tension between the two. The noun, that black pyramid, sits completely still. But the verb, Montessori represents that as a red sphere. It's effortlessly rotating in all directions, exactly like a red-hot, life-giving sun. Just as the sun gives life to the earth, the verb gives life to the static noun. It's this beautiful, constant contrast between what simply is and what happens. And when we combine these foundational ingredients, boom, we get complete thoughts. Take a sentence like, "The dog barks at the cat." The noun dog acts as the subject, the who or what the sentence is all about. Then, the verb barks drives the predicate, actually telling us what that subject is doing. Without both of these halves working together, the whole recipe just falls apart. All right, section 3, flavor, adjectives, and articles. Sure, a sentence with just nouns and verbs gets the basic job done, but it's pretty bland, isn't it? We definitely need to add some flavor and specific details to the mix. Enter our 3 main flavor enhancers. First up, articles, like a, an, or the, which point out exactly which specific noun we're talking about. Second, adjectives. These step in to describe or modify the noun. And third, adverbs, which tell us how, when, or why a verb happens. Think words like quickly or silently. Visually, articles and adjectives are these smaller blue triangles that neatly support the large black noun pyramid. They literally exist just to serve the noun. So the really cool part is how they naturally layer together. You start by laying down the article the. You stack on the adjective, red, and you cap it off with the foundational noun, shoes. The red shoes. It's just a perfectly measured scoop of grammatical flavor. Let's move on to part 4, connectors and handy substitutes. We definitely need these utility ingredients because if we only ever use nouns, verbs, and adjectives, our language recipe would be incredibly bulky, repetitive, and completely disjointed. Pronouns are our handy substitutes. Imagine trying to tell a story about your friend Bob, but you have to say Bob in every single sentence. Bob went to Bob's house because Bob was tired. I mean, it's just so heavy and clunky. That's where pronouns like he, she, they, or it swoop in to save the day, keeping us from constantly repeating the same heavy noun over and over again. At the same time, we absolutely need some glue to hold our clauses together and orient them in space and time. Prepositions are those tiny words like at, in, or under that express spatial relationships, like telling us the dog is under the table. Conjunctions, on the other hand, words like and, but, and because, they act as the actual adhesive, joining different, completely separate phrases together into complex, flowing ideas. Okay, part 5, the spice of emotion. Because sometimes, let's face it, a recipe just needs a sudden, unexpected kick. And that brings us to what is easily the most expressive part of speech of them all. Interjections. We're talking words like wow, ouch, or oh my goodness. These are the pure, unadulterated spice of human emotion. And what makes them so incredibly unique is that they are totally independent. They don't even need to be grammatically tied to the rest of the sentence to do their job. They just stand proudly alone and deliver a massive punch. And because they carry such a huge emotional punch, interjections are almost always paired with exclamation marks. It's essentially the universal visual signal to the reader that, hey, a super strong feeling has just been thrown into the mix. Which brings us to our final section, part 6, perfecting your grammar recipe. Let's look at how to avoid totally ruining the dish. Because just like in baking, if you measure your ingredients incorrectly or grab the wrong type of ingredient altogether, the whole thing just collapses. Here are 2 incredibly common mistakes people make when mixing nouns and articles. For instance, you can't say, I have an information. Why? Because information is an abstract, uncountable noun. You literally cannot hold one single information in your hand. So you have to drop the article and just say, I need some information. It's a similar story with the word advice. Again, advice is uncountable, so you can't just slap an S on the end to make it plural. The key takeaway here is that to make an uncountable noun plural, you've got to place it in a grammatical container. You turn it into these pieces of advice. The word pieces acts as the container holding the uncountable advice. Honestly, mastering these little rules is exactly what separates a novice cook from a master chef. So we've covered the solid black pyramids of nouns, the fiery red suns of verbs, the rich flavor of adjectives, and the sudden spice of interjections. Now that you hold the keys to all these parts of speech, the only question left is this: how will you combine these precise ingredients to build your next great thought? Every single conversation is a blank recipe card just waiting for your masterpiece. If words are the ingredients that construct our reality, what kind of world are you going to cook up today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.